My name is Patricia, and at 29, I believed I had found my soulmate, Keith. Our whirlwind romance led to marriage within a year. Keith, an accountant, is a tall man with laughter so infectious it could light up any room. I work in digital marketing, and painting is my weekend passion. While I've always been a meticulous planner, Keith's spontaneity seemed to balance me perfectly, or so I thought. The day after our wedding, our living room was a delightful mess of gifts and cards, remnants of our celebration. That's when Keith's parents, Judy and Logan, came over. Our quick engagement hadn't left much time to get to know them, but they had seemed pleasant enough during the wedding. As we unwrapped gifts together, I noticed Judy and Logan were unusually interested in certain items. "Is that a crystal vase?" Judy asked, picking up a sparkling piece from my Aunt Kelly. She examined it closely, clearly enamored. "Yes, isn't it beautiful?" I replied, hoping to divert her attention from laying claim to it. Judy set it aside with a casual suggestion. "This would look wonderful at our house." Keith, engrossed in unwrapping some intricate kitchen tools, laughed it off. "Mom, that's our wedding gift," he said, treating the moment as a joke. "Oh, come on, it'll just gather dust here. We'll use it," Logan added, grinning. Trying to keep the peace, I interjected, "Actually, I was thinking it would look great in our foyer." Judy's expression shifted slightly, her tone becoming more pointed. "Patricia, you need to learn to share. We're family now, and families help each other." Sensing the tension, Keith quickly stepped in. "Let's not worry about it, we've got plenty of gifts." I nodded, swallowing my frustration, but the feeling lingered. Strangers were staking claims in my new life, and Keith seemed unwilling to stop them. The first year of our marriage flew by, and soon it was time for our anniversary. Wanting to make it special, I booked a table at Chez Louis, a quaint restaurant we both loved. I even invited Judy and Logan, hoping to show they were valued. When we arrived, they were already seated, scanning the menu. "This place is fancy," Judy remarked, her eyes darting to the elegant decor. As we ordered, Judy didn't hesitate to pick the most extravagant items on the menu. "We'll have the lobster and filet mignon," she announced, her tone casual. Logan added, "and a bottle of your finest wine, of course." I forced a smile, keeping the mood light. "Quite the celebration, huh?" Keith shrugged, brushing it off. "It's a special night, let's not worry about the cost." As the meal went on, their indulgence overshadowed what was meant to be our moment. When the hefty bill arrived, Keith winced briefly before paying without complaint. As we left, Judy linked arms with me. "Patricia, this was just lovely, we should do this every year." Thanksgiving arrived, and with it, the holiday season. Keith and I decorated our home with cozy autumn hues and early Christmas lights. One evening, as we hung decorations, Keith chuckled at a text. "My parents are ahead of the game, they've sent their Christmas wish list," he said, handing me his phone. The list was shocking: high-end electronics, designer clothes, luxury items. "They can't be serious," I said, my voice betraying disbelief. "They like the good stuff," Keith replied with a shrug. The holidays approached, and I settled on a practical gift for Judy and Logan, a nice coffee maker. In return, they gave me a modest set of scented candles. Meanwhile, they gifted Keith a sophisticated drone, further cementing an unspoken expectation: we were to give generously and receive modestly. Though I stayed silent to avoid tension, the imbalance gnawed at me. It wasn't until my quarterly bonus arrived, larger than expected, that I saw an opportunity to bring joy back into our relationship. Keith and I had always dreamed of a romantic getaway to Venice, and now I could make it happen. Over dinner that evening, I revealed the surprise. Keith's face lit up with excitement, a reminder of the love that had brought us together. I hadn't seen Venice in years. "Really? That's amazing, babe," Keith exclaimed, rising from his seat to kiss me. His excitement lit up the room, and for a moment, it felt like nothing could dim our happiness. But then, his phone rang. It was his mother. I tried to tune out their conversation, but snippets floated toward me. Keith's initial enthusiasm was unmistakable as he shared our plans. I wished he hadn't. I wanted this to be just ours, at least for a little while. But as the call went on, his expression changed. The joy in his voice dimmed, replaced by something heavier. I know, you've always wanted to go," he said quietly. When he hung up, Keith turned to me, his face somber. "They want to come with us," he said, as though seeking my approval. I froze, my fork suspended midair. "To Venice? With us?" I asked, carefully keeping my voice steady. Keith nodded, his tone tentative. They've never been and always wanted to go. Let's take them. The room felt smaller suddenly, the air heavier, but it's supposed to be our trip, Keith. Ours, I said, the tightness in my chest rising. He hesitated, then sighed. I know, but they're getting older, and I feel bad. They've done so much for me. I thought of all the times we'd bent over backward for them, the lopsided gift exchanges, the extravagant anniversary dinners, the endless compromises, but this wasn't about them. This is our time, I said firmly. We can plan a trip with them another time. This bonus, it's for us. Keith sighed again, a deep, frustrated sound. They won't understand. You know how they are. And you know how much this means to me, I replied, my voice thick with emotion. I want us to enjoy this together, just like we planned. He fell silent for a long moment before finally nodding. Okay, we'll tell them some other time might work better. But when the time came for that conversation, Keith faltered. Maybe we can all go together next year, he suggested over speakerphone. Judy's response was instant and sharp. Why next year? We can afford it now, she said, her voice laced with disappointment. I couldn't hold back any longer. Because this trip is for us, Judy, I said firmly. Keith and I need this time together. There was a beat of silence before she retorted, her tone icy. Well, that's very selfish of you, Patricia, very selfish indeed. After the call, tension seeped into every corner of our home. Keith withdrew, leaving early for work and returning late. Conversations became brief and mechanical. Dinner's in the oven, I'd say when he walked through the door, my voice echoing in the silence. Thanks, he'd reply, his tone hollow, as though the words carried no weight. I missed him, I missed us. I yearned for the easy laughter we used to share, the nights we spent dreaming about our future on the couch. Now, it felt like an invisible wall had risen between us, transparent but impenetrable. Every attempt I made to reach him felt like shouting through thick glass. One particularly difficult evening, we sat across from each other at the dinner table. The only sound was the clinking of his fork against the plate. I cleared my throat, the noise startling even me. Keith, we can't go on like this, I said softly, my voice trembling. We need to talk about what happened. We can't let this silence become our new normal. He didn't look up right away, but after a moment, he set his fork down and met my eyes. What do you want me to say, Patricia? He asked, his voice tinged with exhaustion. I want to understand why this is hitting you so hard, I said, my voice trembling but determined. Why does it feel like you're choosing them over me? Keith sighed, folding his hands on the table in front of him. They're my parents, Patricia. They've dreamed about going to Venice their whole lives. And what about our dreams, our plans? I shot back, frustration bubbling to the surface. Doesn't that matter to you? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of exasperation I had come to recognize too well. I know, he said, his tone conflicted. For a fleeting moment, I saw the man I married, torn but not indifferent. It's just, they've always been there for me. I feel obligated, you know? But where does that leave us, Keith? I pressed, leaning forward to catch his gaze. What about our marriage? The silence that followed was deafening, each second stretching longer than the last. In that pause, a wave of doubt washed over me. Maybe we weren't as strong as I had believed. Maybe our foundation was less rock and more sand, eroded by the tide of his parents' constant needs and wants. It's supposed to be us against the world, Keith, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside me. Not me against you and them. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the conflict in his eyes. I know, Patricia, I don't know how to make everyone happy. That's just it, I said, a sudden clarity washing over me. We can't always make everyone happy, but we made vows to each other. Keith, doesn't that count for something? He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on the table before meeting mine. It does, it counts for a lot. The rest of the meal passed in contemplative silence, not the strained quiet we had grown accustomed to, but something different. It felt like my words had either planted a seed or watered one that had been dormant within Keith for far too long. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the windows, but it brought no warmth to our home. I awoke to an unsettling quiet, the other side of the bed untouched, the emptiness of the house wrapped around me like a heavy blanket, stifling in its stillness. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I reached for my phone, bracing myself for the usual absence of messages. Instead, my screen was flooded with notifications. A lump formed in my throat as I opened them, one by one. Airline tickets, hotel bookings, all charged to my account. My hands trembled as I read the details. The timestamps showed the transactions had been made during the early hours of the morning. While I slept, the flight had already departed. Keith and his parents were on their way to Venice, the trip that was supposed to be ours, financed by the bonus I had worked so hard to earn. Disbelief turned to anger, then to a profound sense of betrayal. The man I had trusted implicitly had used that trust against me. The evidence was there in stark black and white, glaring at me from the screen. With shaking hands, I dialed his number, even though I knew he wouldn't answer, not with the time difference, and certainly not after our last argument. The cheerful beep of the voicemail was a cruel contrast to the storm inside me. "Keith," I began, my voice low and trembling, "I saw the charges. You took your parents to Venice using my bonus. I don't even know what to say, but I hope it's worth it. I hope it's worth everything." The house felt colder after the call, its walls closing in as silence enveloped me, but inside, a storm of emotions raged: hurt, anger, and the undeniable sting of betrayal. With a resolute heart, I opened my laptop. One by one, I began canceling the hotel reservations, the return flights, and every other part of the trip tied to my finances. Each cancellation felt like reclaiming a piece of myself, a small victory in the face of his betrayal. I felt my former life slipping away, the future I had envisioned dissolving before my eyes. Once everything was undone, I took decisive steps to sever financial ties. I contacted the bank and removed Keith's access to my accounts, each click a mix of fear and liberation. The man I had married, the family I had tried so hard to integrate into, were now strangers. Strangers who had exploited my generosity instead of cherishing it. With mechanical precision, I packed my bags. Each item tucked away was a reminder of a dream now shelved. There was no going back, no apology could repair the breach Keith's actions had caused. He had made his choice, and in doing so, he had determined my path. The wedding ring, once a symbol of our love, now felt cold and heavy in my palm. I left it on the counter, its sparkle mocking the morning light. With one final glance at the life I was leaving behind, I shut the door on what was never truly a home. By late afternoon, I was driving away, my car filled with clothes and essentials. Each item reminded me of how swiftly my life had turned. My phone buzzed with messages, one from Keith, several from his mother. I pulled over, knowing their words would only strengthen my resolve. Keith's message was brief: "Patricia, please, we need to talk about this. Can't we discuss it?" His words felt hollow, almost insulting in their simplicity. I started typing a response but stopped. No words could bridge the gulf between us now. His mother's messages were a mix of confusion and attempts to justify their actions. They, too, fell on deaf ears. As I drove toward a new beginning, I turned off my phone, leaving their desperate messages unanswered. They were halfway around the world enjoying Venice, a trip funded by deceit. They could sort out their accommodations without me. My first stop was the bank. The manager, a compassionate middle-aged woman, greeted me warmly. "I need to ensure my husband can no longer access my accounts," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She nodded with understanding. "Let's make sure you're fully protected." When I left, my accounts were secure, and I felt a renewed sense of control. I drove to my sister Isabella's house, the only place I knew I could truly relax. She opened the door before I even knocked, pulling me into a comforting embrace. "Patricia, I've been so worried," she said, her concern palpable. Over tea at her kitchen table, I explained everything. "You deserve so much better," Isabella said firmly. "I know," I replied, "that's why I'm not going back. I've cancelled everything. I'm done." Isabella squeezed my hand, her face a mix of anger and pride. "Good for you. What's your plan now?" I looked around her familiar kitchen, a sense of relief washing over me. "I'm filing for divorce. I can't stay married to someone who has so little respect for me." Over the next few days, Isabella helped me unpack and plan my next steps. The mundane tasks were grounding, a small comfort amid the chaos, but the quiet didn't last. One afternoon, Keith's parents showed up at Isabella's doorstep. Their faces were tight with anger, and they barged past a stunned Isabella. "You've got some nerve, Patricia," his mother spat. "You ruined our family vacation. You're just a greedy, selfish woman." Isabella stepped in front of me, her stance protective. "That's enough. You're not coming into my house to insult my sister," she said firmly. The argument escalated, catching the attention of neighbors peeking out their windows. Isabella stood her ground, threatening to call the police if they didn't leave. They finally stormed off, leaving behind a palpable tension. Despite the confrontation, I felt an unwavering clarity. I was done. The divorce process was sterile and procedural. Each signature severed another tie, loosening the chains that had held me bound. When it was over, I stepped out of the courthouse, the air fresh and a gentle breeze playing with my hair. Isabella was waiting, her embrace tight and supportive. "You did it, Patricia," she said, pride resonating in her voice. Keith's messages continued for a while: apologies, please, and eventually anger. I left them unread, floating in the digital void. As I moved forward, I rented a modest, sunlit apartment and began to rebuild. Plants adorned the shelves, books filled the corners, and new memories started to take root. One evening, as I sat on my balcony with a cup of tea, I deleted Keith's number. It was a small but cathartic gesture. I was free to heal, grow, and, most importantly, to be unapologetically myself. With each passing day, I embraced my new life and the endless possibilities ahead.